Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Beguiled by Books. I'm Megan, and today I've got my February reading wrap up for you. Let's get started. So February is a short month, but I did manage to read 8 books this month. The first 2 books I read were the Burning Witch series by Dellum Hawk. I read both books 1 and 2, devoured them. They are such warm, cozy hugs in book form. And I read the House Witch series in January, loved it. So wonderful. The Burning Witch series, I think, is even better. I love the characters. I love the adventure. It's so much fun. Highly recommend both of these. The next book I read in February was Sunbringer by Hannah Kaner. I got Sunbringer as an advanced reader copy. Thank you to the publishers and to NetGalley. And I was so excited to read it because I loved Godkiller, which is the first of the Fallen Gods books. Sunbringer is definitely a stepping stone book. So it is the middle of the adventure. There's a lot of setup that I think is going to happen for book 3. So it was a little bit of a lull. The last 100 pages were really good. I'd probably say 50 pages. It's a shorter book. But yeah, the last 50 pages were action-packed, really exciting and really interesting. But leading up to it, there was a lot of setup and without spoiling anything, it was, again, I call it a stepping stone book. So I'll be looking forward to book 3 and seeing how things wrap up. I've heard it's a trilogy, so fingers crossed that book 3 just blows me out of the water. The next book I read was a bit of a departure. I read a book called Cacophony of Bone. I found this at my local bookstore, judged the book by its cover. It was really pretty. I got it, looked interesting, and it was gorgeous. It is an achingly beautiful memoir of the author's time going from her nomadic kind of life, doesn't really stay in one place for too long. And then she and her partner go to a small cottage in the middle of Ireland. And then the pandemic happens and they're locked down. And what all of that means for them, how they cope with the pandemic, with the lockdowns, with this kind of newfound situation. And then on top of that, a miracle happens. They don't know, they didn't think they could have a child. And then the author gets pregnant, and all of the resulting changes and experiences that she deals with is just so wonderful. The story is very straightforward, but also very meandering. It's very, again, achingly beautiful and hard to really put a definite feeling in it, but you can relate to it so well. I absolutely loved this book and want more people to read it. So go out there, get Cacophony of Bone. You will not be disappointed. And it's a short read. I read it in one sitting, like 2-3 hours. The next book I read was also nonfiction called The Comfort of Crows. And I really enjoyed this. I saw the blurb on the cover from Ann Patchett, which I think it's something like a howling love letter to the world. And it was, again, a really lovely kind of year-long review of what the author experiences in her home in Nashville during the pandemic, how the kids that kind of should have left the nest are back in the nest and what that means, and the changes that civilization and growth are kind of wreaking on her natural habitat around her home, and the different animals she sees and how she interacts with them and what they really symbolize and mean for her. It was just a really fun, emotional read as well, just thinking about our place in the world and what that means in relation to our relationship with nature. So The Comfort of Crows, solid book, absolutely loved it. The next book I read was The Great Hunt by Robert Jordan, which is the second book of the Wheel of Time 14-book series. I also read book 3 in February, so I got both of those knocked out in February. Book 3 is The Dragon Reborn, and the show on Amazon definitely starts to diverge from the books for books 2 and 3. And I really like how the show is different, and I think it's a potential improvement. I reserve the right to change my mind as I finish the series. But right now, I really like where the show is going. The books are very adventurous and they move from city to city and town to town and bad guys and villains and new challenges, and they come together and they split up, and it's a very adventurous hero's journey story. It's really fun so far, and there are 11 more books for me to read. So excited to get through that throughout 2024. I will be spacing that out quite a bit. The last book I read in February was a book I picked up again from my local bookstore called Rage Becomes Her. And I had no expectations going into this book, no idea what I was really going to get into. And I ended up really being blown away. I recommended this book to all the women I work with at my corporate job. And it's a really powerful book because it dives into the feelings of anger and rage that women have and how they have been policed and silenced, and what that means for us in society, how that equates to equality and gender equity in the world, and how women kind of express that rage differently, and the toll it takes on us physically, emotionally, and mentally by having to keep that bottled up and be different from how men can express that rage. It was a fascinating read. Again, I really blew through it and highly recommend it for everyone, but especially for women, to help understand how we are policed and how our tones are policed by others as well as ourselves, and how ingrained that is from even infancy beyond our control, and how we can start to break out of those things that are holding us back so we can really use our voices for good and help solve problems in our immediate communities and world, and then throughout all of society, and hopefully create a better world for future generations. What did you read in February that you loved? And do you have any comments on the books that I read in February? I would love to know, so please drop a comment below. I will be having some reading guides for these books coming out soon, so I'm going to drop a link to my reading guides for you. And then please, if you haven't subscribed, consider subscribing to my channel, and don't forget to give this a thumbs up. Thanks, and I'll talk to y'all soon.